The dropship Asterion 9 drifted on the edge of Vargas Theta's upper atmosphere like a silver shard waiting to fall. Inside, the cabin lights glowed dim and amber, humming with the soft tension of soldiers who knew their boots would soon touch hostile ground. Alien recruits, scales, feathers, fur, and skin in every shade, sat strapped into crash seats, their eyes darting nervously toward the one human aboard. Sergeant Rowan Hale sat calmly, elbows resting on his knees, helmet clipped to his belt instead of worn. He was the only creature in the cabin not strapped down, not trembling, not whispering quiet prayers to whatever gods their species believed in. He stared at the bulkhead wall, as if listening to something inside the metal. A rhythm. A vibration. A warning no one else sensed yet. Above them, the ship's AI, Echo 7, monitored their descent with a cold, precise awareness. Thermal readouts. Atmospheric shear predictions. Internal vitals. All standard. All normal. Except one. Human heart rate, 47 BPM. Human stress index, anomalously low. Human reaction latency, off the predictive scale. Echo 7 flagged the readings for internal review. Humans were rarely predictable in high-stress environments. Their biochemistry shifted in ways that defied hard-coded models. But this calmness suggested something else: suppressed adrenaline, preemptive focus, a stillness like coiled steel. Then the ship shuddered. Lights flickered once. Twice. The amber glow turned to red. A sharp micrometeoroid storm, undetected on sensors, slammed into the dropship like a scattershot of razor stones. The hull rang like a struck bell. Every alien in the cabin screamed as the floor jerked under them. Echo 7's voice filled the cabin, clinical and urgent. Warning! Stabilizer rings 2 and 4 offline. Structural rotation increasing. Thruster alignment compromised. Initiating emergency dampening. Gravity lurched sideways. The recruits were yanked against their restraints, gasping as the artificial G-field stuttered. A feathered cadet cried out that her bones weren't built for this. Another begged the AI to stop the spin. Rowan stood. Not stumbled. Not slid. He stood, bracing himself with one hand on an overhead rail as if the violent G-force were nothing more than a sudden elevator drop. Everyone breathe, he said, voice steady, unhurried. Short inhales. Slow exhales. Don't waste air screaming. The calmness in his tone stunned the cabin into silence. Even Echo 7 paused for a microsecond before continuing diagnostics. Rowan pushed past trembling recruits and stepped toward the cockpit door. The ship rocked again, harder, and an alien soldier cried out as a side panel broke loose and crashed to the floor. Rowan caught it mid-fall with one hand and moved it aside like it weighed nothing. Echo 7 spoke again, sharper. Sergeant Hale, you are advised to remain seated. Cabin stabilization is deteriorating. Rowan wiped dust from his brow with the back of his hand and walked anyway. He slid the cockpit door open. Inside, controlled chaos. 2 alien pilots fought the controls with twitching hands. Warning glyphs flared across every console. The forward window showed the moon's broken planes rushing closer. Too fast, far too fast. Rowan stepped between the pilots. What's the readout? He asked. The left pilot stammered. The stabilizer ring is jammed. We lost rotational control. Manual override isn't. Rowan placed both hands on the emergency force input braces, massive metal slabs designed for mech-augmented operators. They hummed with deep vibration, pushing back with mechanical force strong enough to snap bones. Echo 7 flashed crimson. Warning! Human skeletal density insufficient for direct stabilizer control. Injury probability, 98%. Damage irreversible. Rowan's fingers curled around the braces anyway, locking in. It only needs to be reversible after we're alive. He pushed. The ship bucked hard. Sparks burst from a panel. Rowan gritted his teeth as the braces shoved against him like an angry beast. His shoulders creaked. His palms tore against the grooved metal. The entire cockpit felt like it was tilting on the axis of his arms. Inside the cabin, alien soldiers stared through the half-open door. They saw Rowan brace between shaking support frames, his boots dragging along the floor as the ship fought his grip. One recruit whispered, "They say humans evolved on a death world." Another shivered. "They say their bones bend without breaking." The spin slowed. Slightly. Barely. But it wasn't enough. The stabilizer arm outside was jammed physically. No AI command could override it. Rowan exhaled sharply. "I need to get to the hull." The pilots froze. "Why you can't?" "The vacuum exposure." "I'll risk it." Rowan released the braces, flexing his torn hands. Blood glistened in the cockpit's red light. He walked to the decompression hatch. Echo 7 materialized a hologram beside him, flickering with static from the strain. "Sergeant Hale, this course of action is biologically irrational." "That's why it'll work," Rowan murmured. He clipped on a single tether rope, one meant for simple maintenance, not life-or-death exterior traversal, and stepped into the decompression chamber. The door sealed behind him. Inside the cabin, the recruits' hearts pounded. A feline cadet grabbed the window edge with shaking claws. "He's actually going out there," another whispered. "No unaugmented organism survives whole walk under active descent." The outer hatch opened. The world exploded into screaming wind and icy vacuum. Rowan stepped out. His boots magnetized with each thudding step as the hull trembled beneath him. The curvature of the moon glowed ominously below. Air ripped past his helmet, thin fog freezing on the visor edges. Debris from the micrometeoroid storm whistled by like bullets. He kept moving. Hand over hand. Step by step. Toward the jammed stabilizer arm jutting out from the rear hull. Inside the cabin, every alien watched his silhouette, a lone human crawling across a dying ship like a creature built for chaos. Echo 7 struggled to compute the situation, its error logs filling. "Human survival probability, unresolvable." Recalculating. Rowan reached the stabilizer. It was shaking violently, metal struts groaning under atmospheric drag. If it tore free, the ship would corkscrew into the ground. Rowan wrapped both hands around the arm. The moment he pulled, the force wrenched his shoulders backward with a sickening jolt. Pain flared through his nerves. He roared through clenched teeth, muscles bulging, boots scraping loudly against the hull. Inside the cockpit, Echo 7 stuttered. "Warning, hydraulic resistance exceeds human limits." Rowan's voice cut through the wind like a blade. "Then raise my limits." He pulled harder. Harder. The stabilizer arm screamed, metal grinding, sparks bursting. The ship steadied. Slightly. Not enough. But enough to buy seconds. As the moon's surface rushed closer, Rowan locked his legs, shoulders trembling violently as he held the entire dropship's life in his bare, bleeding hands. And the chapter ends on Rowan, alone against physics, the void, and the impossible, refusing to let go. The stabilizer arm bucked like a living thing, trying to rip itself free of Rowan's grip. Every vibration slammed up through his forearms into his spine, like someone was driving a hammer through his bones. His visor HUD flickered under the strain, warning glyphs piling in the corner of his vision. Atmospheric density rising. Descent velocity critical. Time to impact, under 60 seconds. His boots squealed against the hull as the ship fought him, metal shrieking in protest. The tether line at his waist snapped taut, humming with strain, the only thing anchoring him to the falling steel coffin. Inside, the recruits watched with wide eyes through the narrow viewports. All they could see was the human, small against the curve of the hull, locked in a battle with a machine designed to be handled by industrial drones. "Is he moving it?" whispered the avian cadet, feathers bristling. The feline recruit beside her swallowed, claws digging into the bulkhead. "He's not just moving it. He's wrestling with it." In the cockpit, the pilots clung to their seats as consoles spat out angry red runes. Echo 7's voice echoed through the ship, warbling with signal distortion. "Stabilizer ring 2 partial realignment detected. Rotation decreasing. Impact velocity remains fatal. Calculating, fatal. Calculating, fatal." Rowan felt the shift, slight, but real. The centrifugal madness settled by a fraction. His shoulders burned. His hands felt like they were being peeled open from the inside. Echo! He grunted through clenched teeth. What's killing us next? The AI hesitated for a fraction of a second, a hiccup in its normally seamless cadence. Primary descent velocity is beyond safe tolerance. Thruster arrays operating at 98%. Structural damage to lower starboard thruster increasing. Auxiliary stabilizer arm remains misaligned. In English, Rowan growled. You have reduced one death vector, Echo said. The others remain. A bitter, almost amused snort escaped him. Of course they do. The stabilizer arm jerked again. Rowan locked his elbows and shoved, his spine arching, legs shaking as he forced the assembly another degree into position. The ship's yaw eased, the horizon line in the cockpit window leveling just enough that the pilots could see the ground instead of a spinning smear of rock. In the cabin, the recruits felt the shift too. The crushing sideways pull faded, replaced by a more familiar downward drag. Still brutal. But survivable, if someone bought them more time. The avian cadet pressed her visor to the glass. He's still out there. Why? Someone whispered. Because he couldn't live with watching them die. Because the last time a ship came apart around him, someone else didn't walk away. Because some part of him had decided that his body was just another tool to spend. Rowan's vision tunneled around the edges. His hands were going numb. Echo, he rasped. Thruster status. Starboard lower thruster structural integrity at 39% and falling. Misaligned by 12 degrees. Lateral venting causing additional stress on hull and increasing descent instability. Impact in 52 seconds. Can we fix it from inside? Negative. Rowan's jaw clenched. Then I'm going there. He shifted his grip, braced himself, and with one final, vicious shove, jammed the stabilizer arm into its locked position. Something inside his left wrist snapped with a sharp, nauseating crack. He bit down on the cry that wanted to rip from his throat. The ship answered with a groan, then a settling shudder. The spin bled away. Inside, a hush fell over the cabin. Someone whispered, "We're not tumbling." He did it. He actually did it. Rowan sagged against the arm, breathing in harsh, controlled bursts. He let go. Echo, he said between breaths. Reroute power. Take advantage. The AI complied instantly. Rebalancing thrust. Adjusting descent angle. Crash probability reduced from 94% to 91%. Rowan grimaced. I was hoping for better. Before he could move, the ship lurched as a buried fault finally caught up with reality. The starboard lower thruster exploded. The blast tore a jagged hole in the hull just meters away from him. Superheated gas screamed into the thin air, slamming into Rowan like a physical wall. The shockwave picked him up and flung him across the hull. His tether line snapped tight, nearly yanking his spine apart as it caught. Inside, the alien recruits shrieked, watching the human whip across their field of view like a ragdoll. The tether looked impossibly thin. For a heartbeat, they all imagined it breaking. It held. Rowan swung in a wide arc over the void, the planet's rocky surface zooming beneath him in the distance. His vision blurred, black spots dancing across his HUD. Sergeant Hale, Echo 7 said sharply. You are experiencing extreme acceleration. Cardiovascular strain. Not my first rodeo, Rowan hissed. He hit the hull hard, shoulder first, grunting as pain detonated through his torso. Armor plating dug into his ribs. For a second, he lay there stunned. Then he saw it. The damaged thruster, twisted sideways, vomiting exhaust at the wrong angle. As long as it vented like that, it was pushing them faster toward the ground. Rowan spat blood inside his helmet. Echo. How much can we slow descent if that thruster's realigned? Descent velocity reduction, 12%. That's the difference between a crater and a scar. He muttered. Good enough. He unclipped the tether. In the cabin, the avian cadet cried out. He cut his line! Why would he do that? The feline recruit shook his head, eyes enormous. Because it was pulling him away from the problem. Rowan dragged himself along the hull, each step a small act of defiance against gravity, fatigue, and common sense. His fingers shook as he gripped handholds. The wind screamed around him. The hull vibrated with the roar of overworked engines. He reached the twisted thruster housing. The metal was glowing faintly, heat radiating through his gloves. The HUD flashed temperature warnings. Surface contact will cause third-degree burns, Echo 7 informed him. Good thing I'm not using the surface. Rowan muttered, then punched his fingers into a deformation seam. The plating gave way with a wet, splitting sound. Heat surged up his arms. He swallowed the scream. His gloved hands came away smoking. He got lower, braced his boots, and dug both hands into the gap. Beneath the outer shell, structural ribs pulsed with power. The thruster mount was tilted, its main vector angled off-center. If he could muscle it back. You are attempting to move an assembly mass of 273 kilograms, Echo 7 said. Under atmospheric stress. While injured. Rowan bared his teeth. Yeah. I figured. He heaved. The thruster fought him, pushing back with animal ferocity as exhaust vented and the ship shook. His arms felt like they were being pressed through a meat grinder. Skin split. The smell of burned fabric and flesh filled his helmet. Inside, the medic stared at the live feed in horror. He's cooking his own hands, she whispered. A recruit choked. Why doesn't he stop? Because we're still falling, the pilot said quietly. Echo 7 monitored his vitals. Heart rate spiked. Blood pressure surged. Oxygen consumption soared. None of it lined up neatly with survival predictions. The AI, built to predict outcomes, felt something like uncertainty. Sergeant Hale, it said, voice clipped. Continuing this action will result in permanent loss of limb function, possibly fatal shock. Rowan's reply came out through clenched teeth. Then make sure it's not wasted. He pulled. The thruster mount groaned, metal shrieking as it shifted. Centimeter by centimeter, it moved back toward alignment. Exhaust reoriented, the vector changing. The ship shuddered, nose pitching up slightly. In the cockpit, ground altitude markers crawled by. Impact predictions recalculated. Descent velocity decreasing, Echo 7 announced. New projection, impact survivability increased by 21%. Rowan's laughter was ragged, half-mad. See? Progress. He lost his grip for a second as his right glove disintegrated at the fingertips. Bare skin met hot metal. The pain was so bright it was almost white noise. He slammed his hand back into position anyway, fingers blistering instantly. Inside, an alien recruit turned away, unable to watch. Another couldn't look away, throat tight. He's hurting himself on purpose, she whispered. No, the medic corrected softly. He's spending himself. The thruster locked into place with a jarring metallic thunk. Rowan sagged against it, chest heaving. He could smell his own burnt flesh. His right forearm ached with a deep, grinding pain that told him something inside had cracked. Echo, he croaked. Tell me you made it worth it. Descent velocity near threshold for catastrophic failure, the AI replied. However, crash dynamics have shifted from unsurvivable to marginally survivable. Rowan let out a shaky breath. I'll take marginal. Another alert pulsed in his HUD. Auxiliary stabilizer arm, dislodged. He turned his head, blinking sweat and smoke from his eyes. Across the hull, one of the smaller stabilizer fins was vibrating wildly, its base nearly sheared off. If it tore free at the wrong moment, it would send them cartwheeling into the ground. How long? He asked. 41 seconds, Echo 7 said. Maybe less. Rowan stared at the distance. 20 meters. Maybe more. Sloping hull, increasing gravity pull, no tether. He spat copper into his helmet seal. All right. He pushed off from the thruster housing, boots scraping, then drove himself into a sprint. Every step jarred his broken wrist. Wind clawed at him, trying to tear him away. His legs pumped like pistons, armor servos whining in protest. The hull's curvature dropped away beneath him. He ran faster. At the last moment, he pushed off. For a heartbeat, he was weightless, body suspended above the falling ship, the moon's surface looming like a stone wall beneath him. Time stretched thin. Then he crashed into the auxiliary stabilizer. The impact cracked his forearm with a sickening crunch. His fingers spasmed but managed to clamp around the base of the fin. The stabilizer tried to tear free, dragging him toward the edge. He screamed, a raw, tearing sound swallowed by the wind. Inside the ship, Echo 7 watched his vitals spike into territory its models labeled impossible. It recalculated. Recalculated again. Nothing fit. The AI, for the first time since activation, felt something like a stutter in its core routines. How? It whispered over the internal channel, voice glitching. Is he human? The ship steadied one last time, groaning, battered, still falling. But now aimed just enough, slowed just enough, that survival perched on a knife's edge. Rowan's vision narrowed to a tunnel. The world dimmed. His grip held. The ground rushed up to meet them. The world hit them like a hammer from the sky. Asterion 9 slammed into Vargas Theta's crust, metal sledding against stone in an avalanche of sparks and screaming alloy. The nose crumpled. The tail section sheared off and tumbled across the ridge like a dying beast. The hull skidded for hundreds of meters, carving a long, burning wound into the moon's surface. Inside, alien soldiers were thrown against belts, bulkheads, one another. Dust burst through vents. Consoles exploded. The cabin lights died. Screams filled the darkness, raw, terrified, alive. Alive. Because the worst had been softened. Slowed. Redirected. Bought with one human's hands. When the ship finally stopped moving, a ringing stillness fell. Wind howled through tears in the hull. The moon's horizon glowed a ghostly blue under distant starlight. Then groans. Coughs. Movement. The avian cadet was the first to pull herself up, feathers singed. She coughed hard, then looked around wildly. We, another recruit whispered, voice trembling. We survived. Barely. Bones broken. Suits damaged. But breathing. All except. Where's Hale? The feline recruit rasped, unbuckling with shaking hands. The question sank into the silence like a weight. The cockpit was crushed inward. The hull warped. Loose cables sparked around them. Echo 7's hologram flickered in and out of existence, its projection jittery and broken. Yet its voice, though glitching, still spoke. Sir Jaeon. Hale, detected, exterior, hull. The aliens froze, then rushed toward the torn open side of the dropship. Outside, a trail of smeared blood painted the warped plating. Drops led downward across the broken exterior, ending in a shallow crater dug into the moon's dust. They found him there. Rowan lay twisted on his back, armor shattered, helmet cracked, his right forearm bent at an angle no limb should take. His gloves, what remained of them, were fused to his skin. His breathing came in ragged, shallow pulls. The avian cadet dropped to her knees beside him. He's alive! He's alive! The alien medic shoved past her, scanning him. Her device flickered, overloaded, confused. She stared at the readings with growing horror. He shouldn't be, she whispered. What's wrong? The feline recruit demanded. Everything, the medic breathed. Burns. Fractures. Internal bleeding. Oxygen deprivation. He has injuries that kill most species instantly. Yet, she swallowed. His organs are still functioning. And his oxygen saturation is rising. Rising? How? I don't know, she said weakly. Human biology isn't biology. It's chaos wrapped in skin. Echo 7 flickered beside them, its hologram half static. Human adrenaline, causing accelerated cellular compensation, processes inconsistent with known physiology. The medic blinked. He's healing, slowly, without aid. Aliens exchanged frightened, odd looks. Then Rowan stirred. A low breath rattled out of him, followed by a groan. His eyes fluttered open. The cracked visor had left small cuts across his face. His voice came out hoarse. "Everyone alive?" The recruits nearly collapsed in relief. "Yes," the avian cadet said, voice cracking. "Because of you." Rowan exhaled, eyes closing briefly. "Good, good. Sorry I took a minute." The feline recruit let out a laugh that bordered on hysterical. "He's apologizing?" The medic pressed a stabilizer patch to Rowan's neck. "Don't move. You're in no condition to." Rowan pushed her hand away gently. "Check on the others first." "We did," she said. "You were our missing casualty." Rowan blinked slowly, as if processing that. Then he nodded once, almost embarrassed. His instinct hadn't changed. Duty, even when his body should have been screaming for rest. Even when his nervous system should have shut down. A distant tremor rolled through the ground. The aliens froze. Rowan's eyes snapped fully open. "Hostiles," he murmured. "They saw the crash." The feline recruit's tail bristled. "We can't fight like this, we barely survived." Rowan tried sitting up. Pain lanced through him, but he gritted his teeth and pushed. "Help me up." "No," the medic protested. "Absolutely not. Your bones are." "Help me up," Rowan repeated. Not a threat. Not an order. Just a quiet inevitability. The recruits exchanged helpless looks, then lifted him slowly. He staggered, catching himself on a broken stabilizer rod jutting from the hull. He gripped it like a makeshift cane. Overhead, drones buzzed. Scanners swept the ridge. Enemy ground troops, silhouettes with heavy rifles, approached through the dust. Rowan inhaled, steadying himself. "Positions. Spread wide. Use the wreckage for cover." The pilots gaped at him. "You can barely stand." "I don't need to stand," Rowan said. "I need to think." The aliens scrambled to their places. Something electric passed through them, not fear anymore, but resolve. Rowan scanned the field. Smoke plumes. Spark showers. The moon's uneven ridges breaking line of sight. Good. That gave them advantages. He pointed to a metal fragment with a reflective sheen. "Move that plate. Angle it. It'll bounce their scanner beams." "To what?" the avian cadet asked. "To make them think we are on the left flank. Then we hit them from the right." The medic shook her head. "You're injured. Your brain shouldn't be this clear. Pain's just data," Rowan muttered. "Ignore the parts you can't use." Enemy drones fired the first volley. Rowan shoved a recruit down behind a crate, taking the brunt of the blast against his armor. It seared across his already burned shoulder. He didn't slow. He swung the stabilizer rod like a massive steel club, smashing one drone clean out of the air. The recruits stared at the fallen machine. "He just meleeed a drone," one breathed. "Humans don't have the sense to stay still when hurt," another muttered. "Or the sense to die when they should," said a third. The enemy ground troops surged closer. Rowan limped forward, gripping the rod tightly. "Hold until I give the signal." "Signal for what?" the feline recruit asked. "Ambush." Rowan watched the scanners reflect off the angled plate. As predicted, enemy units shifted left, sweeping toward the decoy signatures. Rowan nodded. "Now." The aliens surged from the right side, firing staggered bursts. The enemy troops, blinded by dust and misdirection, fell into chaos. One drone made a break for Rowan. He met it head-on. The machine fired a plasma bolt. Rowan twisted, the shot grazing his armor. He drove the stabilizer rod into the drone's core. It sparked violently, falling in two halves. His legs nearly buckled afterward. The medic rushed to him. "You have to stop." "Later," Rowan said weakly. "Still, hostiles." But there weren't. The dust cleared. The ridge fell silent. Only the smoking remains of enemy units and broken drones littered the ground. The recruits lowered their weapons slowly, looking around in disbelief. We won? Rowan exhaled a long, trembling breath. Good job, everyone. He sank to one knee. Not collapsed, lowered, controlled. But exhaustion weighed on him like gravity had doubled. Echo 7's damaged hologram appeared beside him, flickering. Sergeant Hale, it said, voice softer than before. I have run all diagnostics. All models. All medical comparisons. I can confirm only one conclusion. Rowan blinked at it through hazy vision. Yeah? What's that? You are human. It paused. And that is the most terrifying part. The aliens gathered around him, not with fear now, but reverence. In the distance, rescue ships descended in streaks of silver light. Rowan watched them approach, vision fading in and out. He allowed himself to finally lie back. Pain faded. Wind whispered over the moon's surface. And for the first time since the ship began falling, Rowan Hale closed his eyes, not in exhaustion alone, but in peace. He had kept them alive. Against physics. Against machines. Against fate itself. And humans, it seemed, were very good at that.